Hey there, Diane. Can you hear me? Are you there? Hey, Diane, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Well, I guess she left. Oh, we wait. We wait.
Gerald,
There she is.
hi. I'm doing this on my phone.
Hey, it's all
And it
good.
worked totally fine. I got up at 9 o'clock. I got it all ready to go. And it's like, well, sometimes you're in technology hell. And yeah, I have been lately. So this
Well,
didn't surprise me.
that's part of the technology. It's all good. This is not like my wife or anything where we're on a time crunch.
Yeah, which makes me very nervous when I'm time crunch. But I've done a lot of video off of this phone due to all kinds of stuff. So you look so great. Everything going well with you and the family?
As good as it can go, I guess.
Your family is so beautiful. I look at you on Facebook. I don't always comment because I have so many people I look at.
Oh, thank
And
you.
but I just want you to know what beautiful family, and they're just so precious. Those little ones have grown so fast.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's been mind-boggling to watch them grow. And I've been pretty much a stay-at-home dad, so I've seen like the daily process, and it's just like it's amazing. Like Harper just turned 4 on the 27th. But her vocabulary, and then obviously she was a NICU baby, so just watching her develop and grow, and my son is just it's crazy, especially going through like all the stuff we went through during UA, and I was
Oh, Lord. Yeah,
we'll
that
talk
was,
about that.
that's true. That's true.
But yeah, I
So I'm
appreciate it.
so happy to be part of your podcast. I did some at the beginning of the year in January. I was doing podcasts out of Manhattan as not a host, but a guest for 2 months called Meet
Okay.
the Elite.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was doing a podcast with them, but it does take a lot of time. So I didn't have time to continue,
Yeah.
but I really enjoyed the experience I had with them. And so I thought, sure, I'll jump on that. I'm an experienced podcast guest
Oh, for sure.
when my technology works.
When it works.
So
Yeah, I mean, that was my whole idea, like sitting at home, obviously during the pandemic, and being like an athlete. I've been on TV and media, but I've noticed once I came down to civilization with everybody else, this fear of the camera, this fear of storytelling, all these things. But then I noticed like I sit in a very peculiar situation because I could go to the hood, I could go to Upper Arlington, I could talk to you, I could talk to a lot of different people. So, for me, it was like, how can I do something where I can kind of showcase like different people that I've come into contact with, different
exactly.
stories and put it out there. So I just started my own show. I've been doing it for a little while, but obviously, like you said, it takes a lot of time. So I've been in and out, but looking to start back up here in 2024 where I, release some more, just amazing stories of people that I've come into contact with because I mean, stories like yours definitely deserves to be out there. People need to hear it. How we met, like, I don't think like it's like my life has just been a coincidence
A
ever since,
blur.
yeah, since UA. But
Well, you know what? We meet a lot of people we don't expect to meet
yeah,
that come across our path for all kinds of reasons. And I never thought, and Kim was the same way, that when we started this research, that we would end up meeting fabulous individuals, but making a lot of friends. Like we met your wife, she's amazing, which made us help us to meet you, and all the things that we have done that we never ever thought would happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was not it, like the book, and it wasn't even on our radar. We did it
Right.
for fun. And
Right.
how did this go from fun to what it became?
Right.
I don't know. But yeah, God puts you on all kinds of paths. You can either walk down that path, you go somewhere else. So we thought, all right, we'll walk down this path for a while and have some fun for a year and a half. But met so many incredible individuals.
Yeah. All
So,
right. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce you, and then we go ahead and hop into the conversation because I know
okay.
we could just rip it. So for everybody listening, so this will be on YouTube. I'll probably put some of it on Instagram, Facebook, social media. I have Diane Runyon with me. Diane is the owner of Lineage Links, a genealogical and historical research firm. She's the author of Secrets Under the Parking Lot, along with Kim Shoemaker Starr, graduate of Morehead State University, University of Rio Grande, Masters of Education and Administration from University of Dayton. And then you have early American history from Yale. Did I miss anything?
No, I think we're good.
And family, grandma.
I have, I'm a grandma of six. I have two boys. One lives in Columbus, Ohio, and one lives here in Indianapolis. So,
Okay, nice.
yeah, good times.
And where are you from? Are you originally from Ohio?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Cleveland, went to college in Kentucky, and then moved to Gallipolis, Ohio for 10 years. Then moved back up toward Cleveland to Columbus for 40 years, and now I'm in Indianapolis, which I really like.
Okay. Yeah, I think last time I talked to you, you don't think you were in Indiana. Did you
Yeah,
just?
I'm out in the farmland. Actually, I'm not in Indianapolis. I'm in Noblesville, and we're more of a started out to be a rural community, small town, and it's building up really fast. But I really like it here.
Nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and get into it. So how did you start your company? Like how'd that come about?
Oh, I've been doing genealogy since I've been 15 years old. Well, that's like when the Flintstones were around. And and I always loved doing that all my life, on and off. So when I became a history teacher, I used genealogy to teach my students how to research. And it killed two birds with one stone. They found all about their families.
Hmm.
And then I started teaching a class after school. But then when I retired, my mom said, do what you love. And I thought, well, that makes sense. I got all kinds of time. And so I just decided I'm going to open this company. It was like done. And it took my retirement money into it. And I just started, went live on a website, and about 20 minutes after I walked out of the school, and I've been working ever since. A lot of dead people to
Yeah,
find.
for sure.
So,
I mean,
and
and
then,
I think, being young, I lost my grandmother when I was 6. And she was my main caretaker. But like being young, we drive around cemeteries and, being African American, especially, like I look back at my history and it's like we don't really have that much like genealogical like history that I know of. But
right,
then to understand that, ancestry.com has come out, all these different things have come out, but realizing, how much history, we may lose by, people being buried. And so, I mean, the project that you guys were a part of, Secrets Under the Parking Lot, I mean, that really opened my eyes and my world to like, I hadn't thought about it. I was just kind of existing and living. Um, but then obviously all of these social issues were happening. And then, you guys' project came out while I was coaching at UA. So, I'm here coaching the young boys and men. And then I hear this story. I'm just like, wow, because I
what?
didn't see many people that look like me, first of all. So I already knew that it was, you know, but then to, hear this story, can you let the people know like how you guys came up with Secrets Under the Parking Lot and what the story is about?
Well, I'll tell you, this was such a big surprise growing up in an upper class white neighborhood in Cleveland. I had no idea about Black culture at all. And neither did Kim, really. She grew up in UA. And she cleans headstones. We've been friends for over 40 years.
Wow.
And we're in the DAR, which people think, oh, people can't, Black people can't belong to DAR. But there are a lot of Black sisters in DAR.
Mm.
And, you know, it's doesn't, DAR doesn't discriminate. It's, if
Now
you
what's
have
D
the
now what's
paperwork.
DAR for the people that don't know?
Okay. Okay. People that don't know. Is Daughters of American Revolution.
Mm.
Now, they got a bad spin in the 1930s. Some woman wouldn't let Marian Anderson speak at Constitution Hall, and we're still paying for it.
Mm.
And it's like, why should this whole community be painted with a broad brush, which was not fair?
Right.
Because we have a lot of African Americans in DAR. And the only way you can belong is you have to document lineage back to someone that participated in the revolution. Mm. And they didn't have to be a soldier. They could be a camp follower, which was important because they did all the cooking and the washing clothes and taking care of people. But you could have been a farmer, incredible amount of things that you could belong to be in the DAR. So you didn't have to be a soldier. You just had to be part of the process, yeah. Part of the revolution. So I digress. So Kim asked me over MCL at UA. She says, "There's this cemetery I used to be when I grew up across the street, and can you find out a name?" Well, done. I'm on it like dogs on a bone. And I said, okay. Let me go home after we pay for our meal, and I'm out of here. So I found, you know, doing some research, it wasn't even hard. It was pretty much on the surface that Litchford Cemetery was there. So, well, let's find out about who this guy was. Who is this Litchford guy? So it was a process for a year and a half. We started looking at ancestry. Then we started branching out, engineer's office, historical society, not going to have anything to do with it. Nope, nope, no. Oh, things have a lot changed since we started that but we were going to funeral homes. We learned so much about the mortuary business. We could probably work in a funeral home now, but and why things were in Union Cemetery, it just branched out into a very collaborative effort. Yeah. The recorder's office downtown, they were amazing. They really took this, but the one person that I have to give all the credit, not all the credit to, but huge credit to where it became to this point was Paul Emhoff. Mm-hmm. He was not from UA. And so he didn't have a dog in that fight. Right. And he said, we're going to make this right. And when he put his money where the mouth is with the Board of Education, the story of Pleasant Litchford just bloomed. Mm-hmm. And it was not an easy thing. I mean, we also experienced a lot of prejudice, for sure. A lot of not nice stuff. And you know what? Let them talk. Yeah. You know, because we're going to live by the documents. This is a family that made a huge difference in the community and Columbus, Ohio. Why should they be dismissed? Right. And so we had to publish because we couldn't put all those amazing, never seen records in a box. Right. And in the garage because it was not to be that way. Yeah. Yeah. So that's where we were.
I have to just say thank you for that work because it definitely helped me. You know, being that I was living in UA at the time, you know, when you don't see yourself or you don't see that representation, you know, you feel it, you see, you know, but shining the light on that, you know, one, it showed me that I belonged, you know, that I wasn't, you know, there was a reason, there was a purpose for me being there at that specific time.
Exactly.
but also just understanding, how much history that we have that's still uncovered, that, impacts our daily lives, because I feel like if Pleasant Litchford's story had been out, when UA first became UA, UA might look a little different, if they,
Absolutely.
so, and obviously we're still dealing with a lot of these social issues. You have Columbus proper, but then you have the suburbs that, is a struggle to get affordable housing or equitable housing, or just equity within the community, from a social standpoint. So I think, what you guys did was break the ice, and also open things up for the dialogue and conversation. But again, Paul Emhoff, who opened up that vessel as well. And then, there'll be, what are they going to do to commemorate? I remember they were going to do something, but I haven't really been keeping up with UA lately.
I haven't either. I asked Kim the other day if the signage was up, and they were like, fine. It's been 3 years. They've been fighting over the signage. Come on.
Of course.
It shouldn't be hard. We'll write the signage, pay for it, put it up, done.
Right.
But we did. We were with a team during COVID that worked on the school curriculum K through 12 for Pleasant Litchford. Okay. Whether they're teaching it or not, see, Paul's not there, and I don't know anything about the new superintendent and whether he's invested in this story. But we can't just sit idly. I'm working on going nationally with it, and have been trying to get the book into the African American Museum in the Smithsonian.
Okay.
And so I obviously need some more connections to get into the bookstore, because I think his story is a national story. Because
of course,
once we published, it was really interesting how we heard from people from all over the country, and they had similar experiences. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, okay, we need to bring this up, because this is not new. It's just that it's been kept under the veil of not secrecy, but of not caring.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it is a history that is rich.
Right.
And for me, I joined the Second Baptist Church, which is the largest Black church in Franklin County. Mm-hmm. And obviously I stand out in the reverse, but I learned what a loving communion with these individuals that had so much to tell and so much to give. And they were part of this story because we worked with them intensively. But I could say that I have learned an awful lot about the struggle. I understand it way more, but we don't teach it in school. Being a history teacher, how did I get a master's degree in history and not know anything about it?
Right.
I never heard about any of this. So it was like, we don't have the education in place, right. Excuse me, to tell the story through documents the way it really is, because you have to tell it in the time in which these people lived.
Right.
When the community was, let's say, the 1900s, what was the social thought process of those days? Right. It's different because we want to look at that in a 2023 lens, and you can't.
Right.
Because everything is different.
Right. Yeah. And I think, the national point, that was one of my things, like, okay, local, but I also knew like UA wouldn't want that story to be truly loud, right? Because then it taints this, image that UA has.
Exactly.
Which, again, everything is about the image, the facade. This community is, upscale, affluent, best high school schools, the housing price values are through the roof. so, they look at this, as tainting their image. But again, you have
Right.
to, how do you expect, especially, when we talk about minorities, I'm not talking about immigrants, I'm talking about people that have been here, for generations that should be allowed. When I moved there and we were having some issues, a lot of the Black people in the Black community of Columbus were like, why would you live in Upper Arlington? Like, you should have already knew. Well, I'm not from Ohio. I'm not from Columbus. So I didn't know, what
Yeah.
it's all about. We lived on the outskirts. We were renting. So it wasn't like I was shelling out, money to buy a house. But once I got in the trenches, I began like, oh, this is what they were talking about. But
Uh-huh.
again, I've been in positions where I've been the only Black guy, so I'm kind of used to it, especially from a sports standpoint. But this story definitely needs to go national, and that's one of my biggest things is like, how do we get this story national? Because it's such a powerful story, and again, this stuff has been happening all over the country, like where
Right.
they found grave sites or they've, unmarked graves and dug things up. So I want to again thank you for that work, and to know that you're continuing to do the work, to share that story, I think is huge. But also just in terms of like the education, because again, we talk in 2023, 2024 terms, we have all these social interactions via social media. But then it's like, well, if we have peoples with history master's degrees or education degrees, and this information is not in the curriculum, how can we
Right.
have any type of real dialogue or discussion in the real world when our most prestigious and elite education folks don't even have the information? So then they're spewing information that may not be accurate, or they may be denouncing, like our feelings and our emotions towards it. And it's like, this is real life stuff that impacts us today. Like, how do we go
Right.
about addressing that in a way? Because again, Black community, we're not really going to get master's degrees, or, we're not getting accepted in some of these schools, but we know from our own history, from maybe grandma. But then in the social world, if it doesn't come from a journalist, if it doesn't come from somebody with a MBA behind them, or, the letters behind them, we deem you as not fit to have this conversation or even be in the
Which is so sad.
yeah.
So sad. It was interesting, going back to Second Baptist, so many of them who are very good friends of mine were part of this conversation. And when we were talking about the Litchford Club there on Front and Gay, way back in the 50s, when they were having, all the, BB King and all them, Etta James singing down there, the older group said, oh yeah, we used to go down there and this is what we did. Amazing. Amazing, because that is like your source, people,
Right.
is right there, and what it was like, and things that you can't get unless you talk to the source, and you
Right.
have to not. A lot of journalists, I'm not painting them with a broad brush, a lot of journalists haven't done the work to where they dig deep into what exactly it is, and they're getting a talking point on this and that and this and that. But until you get to the core of what it's about, and what was it like, and who, and in real time with somebody that was actually there,
Right.
and their life experience, it kind of loses it, because people always interpret things the way they want it to look.
Mm-hmm.
But when I wrote the book, I worked with the Black Genealogical Society at the library, and with Sandra Jameson, and all the Rita Smith, and oh my God, my buds, that this was not my story. I'm just the vehicle of getting the story out. This is their story. And before it was published, they got to read it and say what was correct and what was not, because it had to be right.
Right.
And everything has a primary source document. It was all there.
Right.
But nobody looked for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just shocking that someone so powerful and inspirational could be left to a sentence.
Yeah.
They have Pleasant Litchford. No, who is Pleasant Litchford? Nobody even asked.
Right.
They have it in the library. Pleasant Litchford
Let
was
the
the
people
list.
know who Pleasant Litchford was.
And they never looked to see who he was. Here's all the landowners, they're big landowners. Well, they never even looked.
Right.
The Historical Society had no clue. They were not happy.
Yeah.
But they're doing a good job now. Kristen Greenberger is really working hard, and I have to give her credit for that.
Yeah.
So I'm really, maybe this is my quest for this coming year, is to work harder on the rest of the story, because what people don't know is the part that's not published yet is that Pleasant Litchford was also a mover and shaker in Madison, Indiana.
Mm.
And his daughter lived right on the Ohio River. I've been down there. She had a beautiful house. And you wonder, I was thinking it would be like a small little Cape Cod with, how you think.
Yeah.
And went down there, it was a big brick house.
Oh, wow.
And she was part of the Underground Railroad, and it's right there on the Ohio River.
Wow.
And he lived with her, and there's part of the story again.
Yeah.
That how his journey, this whole Underground Railroad thing,
yeah,
is new.
Yeah.
And
it's so rich here in Ohio.
Rich, very rich. And it needs to be, have more people that are interested in history and the Underground Rail process to get involved in bringing it out and fleshing it. What a great movie it would be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of my things too. Like, I always liked history, but it was from more of a vantage point that history was more truth, right? It wasn't based on opinion. It's not based on, just some made up things. It's truth. But it also, points to how we ended up where we are. And I think that's one of the things that project brought out in me was like understanding that history is a good field and that a lot of young people aren't in that field. We're not necessarily drawn to it. And it kind of we need to kind of upgrade it. That's why like I'm all for digital media, because it's like a lot of these stories haven't been told, but now we have social media, we have the internet. Then you have all these Underground Railroad houses in Ohio. And it's like these things need to be brought online. This information needs to be brought online. There needs to be a tour that people can go to where you literally can drive the national road and hit all of the, underground sites,
yes.
Stuff like that. Because like before I moved here, like I had no idea, like, we're taught obviously the Great Migration, but if you're not taught in master school, like they only teach you like the Underground Railroad. This is what happened. People moved from the south to the east to the west, and it's like to the north. And it's like, well,
and
nobody
then
really
next,
talks about it. Yeah, and it's like, well, then we just
like,
we just
we
ended
get
up.
a paragraph. Yeah,
So,
if the teachers don't, and if it's not in your curriculum, you don't. But I was the rogue teacher and always taught off script because I used all my pre-1900 history books, which I have a huge collection, and where history wasn't that. I mean, when they're talking Civil War and it's actually published in 1879, you're getting a more raw story than after it's been sanitized for 150 or more years. Then the story's not even right.
Right.
And so I did an experiment with my students on. Now I read some about the Emancipation Proclamation from Lincoln and what day it was like, and from a very old book. And they talk about he's laying on the couch and he's playing with his cat and he's writing this in the book, all this. Well, and what the day was like. And then you get to 1950 or so, and then what does it look like in your textbook now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's different. Then when we got to the 2000s,
mm-hmm.
we first didn't even have textbooks, but the last textbook that I could find that the school had, because everything's digital,
Mm-hmm.
mentioned it instead of 2 pages. It was like a small paragraph.
Wow.
And I said, well, really? I know there's a lot of history that went along, but you need to, there's more to that story.
Right.
Like the Underground Railroad doesn't deserve a paragraph. It
Right.
deserves an in-depth look at what's going on. So we will see sadly, a lot of history teachers just do dates and things like that. But it's more interesting if it's really a story. History, if you look at the word history, is a story.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
word history.
Yeah.
And 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 this is how this connects all of us together. And a lady in one of the speeches I gave in the Upper Arlington Library, which they said nobody would come, and it was overflow crowd, and it was mixed African American white, about half and half. And this wonderful older woman says, "I need to talk to you." And I thought, oh Lord,
Mm-hmm.
I'm messed up. She says, "Now sit here and talk to me." And I said, "Yes, how can I help you?" I thought, this is either going to be a slap down or a learning situation. So let's go into this not being nervous. And so she was lovely. And she was probably in her 80s, probably, or older. Sometimes you can't tell. So she said to me, what what makes gray babies? Are there gray babies? And I go, I have no idea. Have you heard this story about the gray baby?
I have
Oh
not.
my gosh. I
Gravy.
tell this at the end of every single speech I do. And she said, okay, she took my hand, she said, put white in this hand and black in this hand and rub them together. What color do you get? And I said, gray. And I thought, I'm missing the point here, but I was just keeping my mouth shut, not to show how stupid I was. And she says, are there gray babies? And I go, no. So if you mix black and white people, are they gray? And I go, no. And she said, give me your hand. And she pulled up my sleeve and she said, what color are you? Are you white like a piece of paper? And I go, no. And she goes, are there gray babies? And I go, still, I don't know. And she said, we are all a shade of brown.
Mm-hmm.
You're a light brown,
Mm-hmm.
beige.
Right.
I'm darker, but I'm brown.
Yeah.
The darkest of African Americans, or anybody of East Indians, are also very dark.
Yeah.
Are they black? No, they're the darkest brown. So we are all one color, but we're the same. We're the same color, but different shades.
Shades. Yeah.
And I thought, you're brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant because, oops, I missed you. I'm coming back.
Right.
So I thought, so we really aren't white.
Yeah.
You don't know anybody that's white,
Right.
or
Right.
anybody that's
Yeah.
black.
Black. Yeah.
We're the shades of the same color.
Right.
So, that is very profound, actually,
Yeah.
when you think that we are the same,
Mm-hmm.
but people judge us on our shade.
Our shade. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not right.
Yeah.
It isn't.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that, again, that plays into where we are in society as well, because, again, in the African American community, there's an issue of light versus dark, right? Like my wife is light skinned. She's very light. She's mulatto, but she's a black girl, and so she's had issues being light skinned and, I'm brown, I get tanner, but it's, understanding that again, like we are judging people based on an image, and not understanding that humanity, at the end of the day,
Right.
we're human beings. But again, that's why understanding history is important, because African Americans weren't considered full human beings, so we still live in a society today where we're not being paid the same wages, or we're not being treated equally based on just prejudices or biases based on appearance. And from somebody like myself, like even when I started growing my locks, you knew me before I had locks. But I grew it kind of like a social experiment. Like I wanted to see like how people treated me, because I still get treated a certain type of way with my hair cut, but you could feel as soon as I start talking, it relaxes people. When I got my locks, it was a completely different shift, and how people approach me or how people look at me. But then again, I talk and it's like, oh, like we could be cool because he's articulate, he can talk. And so, I think too in our social realms, class, we see like darker Black men as stronger and I kind of forget sometimes that I'm kind of big too, like I'm a former football player. So like, I try to be gentle, like I don't want people to just think that I'm just big, because I'm like, I've had to humanize myself, even removing myself from football, because we don't look at football players as human beings. These are gladiators, these are mad monster guys, but we don't see them as emotional, as having feelings. And so I've had to work on that transition as well, to kind of come off a little softer, because I know I can be very aggressive, or my wife says I push, because again, as a football player, I know like if I push a lot of weight, I'm gonna get stronger, or if I push myself, I'm gonna get better. And so that's how I look at everything else. If I push you, you're gonna get better. You may fail, but you're gonna get stronger. And so that's what your story and Pleasant Litchfield really did for me. Like it forced me to like push the narratives and talk about some of the things that are uncomfortable in this light, about race, because I talk about race all the time. And like my wife's like, people think you don't like white people. And I was like, well, if anybody paid attention, like there's a lot of white people around me all the time,
all the time.
Like, and I'm
Yeah.
talking like I have. Go ahead.
You talked about that social experiment, and I have to laugh. And this is a little twist, but the same premise. I went in, and this has been years ago, a single mom, and had kids. I looked like I've been pulled through the knothole. Mm-hmm. So I went into, it was in Worthington, went into a very nice, not mention their name, a bougie store where I used to shop all the time. And no one would wait on me. Mm-hmm. Nobody. And I'm holding garments that you're like, oh, you want a fitting room? Or nope. It's like, so I went home, I lived close, cleaned up, put a face on, put some nice clothes on, and then strolled in. Mm-hmm. They were all over me like flies on a rump roast. And I thought, again, there's a prejudice between, and that was my social experiment, between somebody you don't know, the person that looks the most pitiful could be the millionaire, and the person all boosted up could have nothing. Mm-hmm. But they treat you differently. Yeah. So there's you have all kinds of prejudices. Yeah. It could be the educated versus the uneducated. Mm-hmm. The people that have degrees but know nothing. Right. Versus the person that has life experience that could just whip you good, knowledge-wise. Right. So when you look at society in the whole, it's amazing who lives in the big house versus who lives in the small house. Well, the big house, if you go in, has no furniture because they don't have any money. Mm-hmm. But you have the small house, and they're got $1 million in the bank and can travel whatever they want. You're exactly, it is perception. Mm-hmm. It is the facade that human beings live behind for acceptance in what they think is important.
And I mean, unfortunately, that's kind of how capitalism has designed us, right? Like if you go get a job, you got to, be prettied up, you got to be dolled up to put on this image that you're valuable enough, that you're worthy. Or if most of our jobs these days are marketing, advertising, and sales. So to sell a product, you got to look the part, you got to look a certain type of way. But now we're
Right.
getting more to a skill-based economy where it's more about skills, it's more about having a personality, being able to speak to people, not just having a degree, being able to network. So I think we see that shift kind of happening. But again, we've had 100 plus years driving forward. You got, if you want to be in business, suit and tie. You got to be,
Yeah.
and that's, for me, I look at it like I went to private school growing up, but I'm from the hood, and it's like, most people can't afford a suit and tie.
No.
It's shoes and like to get that suit pressed and cleaned, and to have multiple suits, to have multiple shirts, multiple ties. And so a lot of times we don't talk about, like we talk about wealth or financial wealth, and it's like, well, we don't talk about the suits that get passed down from generation to generation. So the next generation has a nice suit or a nice tie,
Hmm.
or, just how that perception works. That you may, if you don't have the money, you can't be perceived a certain type of way because you may not have it, you
Or
know?
you drive up in like my Subaru. I drive
Right.
up in my Subaru and park with all the Lexuses and stuff. And I've had a Lexus and a BMW and everything, but the Subaru works for me because I travel a lot.
Yeah.
But they go, oh, a, you drive a Subaru. And I'm like, seriously? Do not smack down on my Sub, you know? But they're
Well,
like,
it's good to know that,
oh,
that
don't
the
get it
older
too
folks,
close to my Beamer. Like, all right, whatever.
as a young person, it's nice to know that the older folks are just like, they're the same way. Cause it's like, I drive a hoopty because I'm like, I don't want to be, I go back and forth. We live in Columbus, but the kids my son's in Westerville schools, and I still drive around, but I know like if I'm looking too clean, like I'm gonna get robbed, I'm gonna get, I'm gonna get pulled over or something. You got too much money.
You know what? I have a dent in the hood of my car, and it's been there 2 years. And I figure, well, if they're going to steal it, they're not going to steal the one that they got to fix.
Yeah.
So they're going to steal, or you park next to the Beamer because they're going to steal the Beamer versus your Subaru.
Right.
And oh my God, that is so true. So yeah, like what do I do to keep my car from being jacked? Well, there you go. Don't drive anything nice.
Yeah.
That's the safety thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Especially in
no,
today's,
nothing wrong with a hoopty. Nothing.
especially in today's economy.
Oh my gosh. We're looking for a car for my granddaughter, and it's like, what? You
Yeah.
know, in 4 years' time, we got a car for my grandson who's now 20. It's when he went away to college, and you can't even touch anything that's safe.
Right.
You know, it's I don't know what we're gonna do. Maybe I'll have to take all a loan out, but we're working for it though, because I think if you work for most of it, that you take better care of it.
For sure.
You know, yeah.
I mean,
So
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And when you have opportunities, I think, a lot of times what we see culturally, you look at like a place like UA, and it's like, well, you look at Hilltop or, Franklinton, which is just 5 miles away. And it's like, well, if you give people nicer things, like, and you give them an opportunity to take care of it, you give them money, you give them good jobs, most average people will take care of their stuff.
yeah,
Like, the reason people aren't taking care of the hood is because they don't own it. They may be on Section 8.
that's right.
There's no ownership. Like I don't,
Exactly.
that entitlement, which when you live in a place like UA, that entitlement comes to protect it, to take care of it. And I think that also is what prevents that upward mobility, is like this, oh, we have to protect this because it's so nice. Our roads are so clean.
Mm-hmm.
It's also illusion, but I won't keep you too much longer. But just to wrap up, what are some things that you think maybe your generation can help the younger generations understand about history, sharing history, learning history, that could help us move the needle forward into the future?
Well, it's going to be education,
Yeah,
100%. And also to treat other people the way you want to be treated. And I don't know, did that come from the Bible? Came from somewhere, but somebody important said that. I should know. But if
Now,
you
when
reach
it comes to education, not to cut you off, now
no, that's fine.
you just told us a lot of this information isn't in books or it's been
Right.
skipped over. So now how do we need more people like yourself doing some of that dirty work, going to find
Yes.
this history, or do
Yes.
we need more people like myself going to find people with the stories to share that
It's
information?
yeah, it's everybody. And as you know, as we're seeing the protests going on today about other things, that the students that are protesting, most of them don't even know the backstory. They have no idea.
Right.
And we've seen this all along the way. Unless you are taught the real history, not the one that somebody's got an agenda and they have different thoughts. As a historian, you cannot, or you should not, put into your dialogue your own feelings about certain things, because I only go by the documents.
Right.
And then I do research about the society around it. If you don't have that knowledge or don't care about it, you're not giving them the chance. I would love to teach a class to African American students. I've taught all over the country since this has been speaking all over the country on Pleasant Litchford and how his life impacted them. Unless you give them that knowledge, you're not going to know. You're all going to think it's always Black versus white, Jews versus, Palestinians. It can go for I'm an Irish girl, and we've had our day in hell also. Every community has had hardship.
Right.
Every community. The Japanese in the 40s, all interned. That's bad. Right. But if you can't educate the population, they live in ignorance. And I think what you're doing, what the podcast people are doing, all the venues to get out the real story, right, so people can decide where their vision lands. Like, okay, now I know now how do I feel about all of this stuff? Right. That should be their decision, but you have to give them the knowledge to do it. I think you're exactly right, and what you're doing is tremendous.
Yeah, and I think too, especially with the community in Ohio and the history of Ohio. Ohio is one of the richest states of the union, right? Like, the
nobody knows that.
Yeah, and it's like Ohio like keeps it like hidden. Like, we don't have that many museums. Like, I feel like we should have way more museums and like things that encapsulate this history. So like that's why it's like learning this information when I learned it, but then realizing like, why are we just now getting here? Why has it been so pressed down, for so long? Because like my wife is from Zanesville. So even there, they have an underground railroad because the National Road is right there.
Of course.
And there's all these different underground railroad stories. And it's like, why isn't this stuff like even bigger? Like, why aren't we cherishing this history more? Like, and obviously I know even from the Black community, like it's seen as like, a lot of people don't talk about it because it's painful, right?
Sure.
So I understand that. And I think that's why a lot of like our elders don't share it because of that trauma. But again, it's like we're losing so much valuable information from firsthand sources that a lot of times we can't even like go ask grandma or auntie. Like I go ask.
They're gone.
Yeah, and, or you go ask them and they're like, I don't want to talk about that, or they don't want to talk about it. And so it's a challenge for our community. And I think those are one of the biggest things that we have to do is kind of find ways to break that ice, and uplift those stories, not just make it where it's painful, but uplift it in a way where it's celebrated, it's supported, and it's valued. And we see that value because right now we're in some odd times, the violence, obviously the protests, but if you don't have the full story, it's hard to really move forward in any type of meaningful way. So, last question, is there anything that you want to share, or how can people find you, your website? How can people find the book, Secrets Under the Parking Lot? Anything else that you want to share before I let you go?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to keep this short. Um, the Pleasant Litchford story started actually in Cameroon. And I traced the DNA of Mr. Bryant in California all the way to the Tikar tribe in Cameroon.
Oh, wow.
Now, he was brought to Richmond, Virginia, and you think about this. They say, well, we can't achieve anything because something happened somewhere down the line. Here is a man that came as a slave to the States in the late 1700s. He and his whole family were enslaved. When he became free and they became free, they came to Ohio. He educated himself, and he changed a community. Look at all he did. It takes guts to live and make a difference through adversity. It didn't stop him from doing all that he did. It didn't stop his children from being successful people. That whole family line, they're hugely successful attorneys from Yale, Harvard, and doctors and neurosurgeons, movers and shakers. It was a choice.
Yeah.
But Dad, Pleasant Litchford, was not going to let them fail. He showed them the will to move on and put the past behind him and make a difference. He did. So this book is about him and his whole family, and it's called, as you said, Secrets Under the Parking Lot, which was actually a big secret under that parking lot. And it can be found on Amazon. We have sold over 5,000 books nationwide. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
For somebody that's self-published that didn't want to write a book, you know. And I wrote it just as I talk.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I'll put little things in there like, don't trust people when you get a lot of money because they'll want to be your friend, you know, things like that, you know, because that happened in the book, and it's sad and joyful and productive and impactful, and has a lot to tell people about life.
Yeah.
And they were all a very mixed family when they came, the later generations, and nothing held any of them back.
Right.
And just because grandpa was a slave and grandma was a slave and their fathers were slaves, they became who they are by will and by choice, and by Dad wanting to educate them.
Yeah.
And it is down to education. They could have been nothing,
Right.
but they chose not to be. So that's my parting story there.
Well, Diane, I thank you for your time, all that you do for the community, obviously, all that you do through your business. Is there a link to your website for your business?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. lineagelinks.com.
Lineagelinks.com. So definitely follow if you need some genealogical work. This is your lady.
I am your girl. I do a lot of slave stuff, believe it or not, with the Library of Virginia. So I am very well versed in slavery records, and also I'm a fellow at the Ulster Foundation in Ireland. So Ireland and Scotland are pretty much a strong point for me.
Okay.
But I do work all over the world.
I found out I got a little Irish in me.
Yes.
I might have to get you to do my genealogy though, because I don't know too much. Well, I did 23andMe. So, you know, like 60-70% African countries, Congo, Ghana, where else? I had some European, I think for like 4% European. So I got a little like my granddad, like that side is all over the place, but you know, I'm trying to learn so again I could pass that information down to my kids and make sure they have it. Because I think
Well,
it's
here's something interesting that before we get off, Dr. Kindle, I think his name is, I can't think, I'll send you the link. He was a geneticist at Ohio State. He started his own business. I think he's in the Carolinas now.
okay.
For his doctorate, he went to Africa and did a DNA on all the tribes.
Mm,
It took him years. And then that's how I found that the Litchfords came from Cameroon, is
mm,
I sent the DNA of Neil Bryant to Dr. Kindle and had them run it, and it showed the T-Car tribe.
oh wow.
Because, and so if you ever want to do that, and I will send you that link, I've got it somewhere in this mess of an office. Amazing, and it will drill down on what tribe were you from and what was going on in that area, because the T cars were very smart, but they weren't good in warfare. That wasn't their thing,
Right.
and that's why the other group took them over and sent them to slavery to get rid of them or kill
Right.
them off. So that would be good to put that as a link for people who want to do a DNA that goes farther back into their African heritage. I think that's so exciting.
For sure. Yeah. Send me that link and I'll put it in the description once I upload it.
Yeah.
Well,
This has been great fun. I always enjoy talking to you.
yeah, likewise. I'm gonna have to get you back on and we'll do some of that education. Cause I feel like, I mean, the internet is so powerful. And I mean, one of the things we do need is more people from your generation, I believe, not afraid of the camera and sharing. You know, you seem obviously very but I talk to a lot of older people, and it's like, I gotta be on camera. It's like it's not that bad. Just talk, you know?
Talk. That's all we want to do. And that's what I do well is talk. So, I am more than happy to help educate and maybe a vehicle for me to put my YouTube out there to be the history teacher on YouTube. This
Yeah.
is what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. I
There
mean,
you go. You're my muse. You
because the
know,
school, I mean, the schools is only going to teach us so much, you know.
I have so much time.
You
Yeah,
only got so much time, and then you know you got young teachers. They ain't being taught the real history. They don't have that I mean, one thing I did learn, I mean, lived experience, right? Living in
right.
UA, getting involved on the ground floor, and then like saying like, oh, like you really gotta, you really gotta get involved and be willing to be on the ground floor and willing to do the dirty work.
And
Um,
be willing to take the flat.
and be willing to take the flack. Because that was one of the biggest things too. Obviously, my wife being who she is, and then me doing some of the work I'm doing, where it's like, you know, it's not pretty and it's not really the work that they want to show, you know, because then I talk greasy too. I don't talk like a news anchor, you know. I
Me either. I just talk like a woman that has strong Kentucky Irish roots, and that's about it. But I had to laugh when the book first came out. UA was like, oh, it was
ripping it to
bad. It
shreds.
was really bad. And somebody put on the website on Amazon, it's still probably on there, well, look who, this book was terrible and it's not true. And it was written for like middle school. And I wrote back, perfect. Because I'm a teacher and I wrote for middle schoolers.
Right. That's what
So
we
it'll
want.
be quick and readable. So you gave me a huge compliment and they thought they were throwing shade and it didn't work.
Ooh, I love. We're gonna end
I
on
know. I was like, thank you.
end on that. Cause that's, I mean, that's how they be acting over there too. They them bougie. And that's what I be trying
Yeah.
to tell people, because a lot of people don't understand. Like me, like again, being from where I'm from, but then being in private school from third grade all the way through high school, like I've been around like the elites for long enough to understand how
And
they
how they
operate
were.
inside. You know what I mean? So
That's,
I
it's like, whatever, you know.
love that. I love that. Well,
I
I
do too.
appreciate I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. And I'll have this uploaded probably in the next day or two. So I'll send you the link once it gets updated. But
You're awesome, and I'll send you his. I'll get his thing, Dr. Kindle's. I think it's Kindle. It's a little early. I'm still working on my bulletproof coffee, and so you know, it will kick in here in a minute, and then you'll never shut me up. So I'll get that to you so you can link that, because it's a really important resource for people. The African American community will give them more depth into who they are.
for sure, that would be important. So again, thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your weekend.
I will. It was fun. Thanks, Gerald. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you later, Diane.
Bye-bye.
Later.